Well, good afternoon again, everyone. If you're just joining me, my name's Micalah. I am up here on the mezzanine level behind most of you all because it is just about time for our afternoon feeding and training session with our 3 Southern Sea Otters on exhibit. Now, on exhibit today, we have Rosa, Selka, and we have Ruby. And in just a moment, we'll be joined on that back deck by a few of our trainers that will each have buckets of food on their hips that have all of the delicious food items for these sea otters. Our otters will mostly be eating squid, shrimp, and clam's tongue today, all soft food items that get them their nutritious value without damaging any of our exhibit in the process. Because typically in the wild, these otters would eat hard, benthic invertebrates, or animals found on the bottom of the seafloor without a backbone. If we give them those inside of the exhibit, they actually will take the hard shells and slam them up against the windows to break into those hard foods. And by doing that, they scratch our windows in the process. And so we actually have to give them these soft food items on exhibit just to ensure that our windows stay nice and clean and all of you can see on inside the exhibit. Now, each one of our girls is just hanging out in the water right now, and we can tell that they are just about ready to be joined by those trainers in here. Again, we have 3 girls on exhibit. Rosa is going to be our blondest out of the 3 on exhibit. And we have Ruby, who's our smallest and darkest, and then Selka, who's somewhere in between. Now, as our trainers come out, we're going to see Rosa go to that far right-hand side of the exhibit. We've got Selka right in the middle, and then Ruby on the far left-hand side of the exhibit. You'll notice, again, each one of our trainers has those buckets along their hips that have the different food items inside of them. These buckets actually allow us to make sure we know exactly how much food each otter is getting. And each otter is going to be getting a very different training session today. You'll notice on that far right-hand side, our trainer's actually working with Rosa nice and close. Whereas in the middle, Selka's now on the back deck there, working on some of her on-land skills. Each one of these skills is very crucial to make sure that the relationship between the trainer and the otter stays nice and strong. This is important for if we have to move our otters on and off exhibit. We want to make sure to have these relationships nice and bonded so that that process is easy for both the otters as well as our trainers. Now, these otters are pretty incredible. They actually need to eat a lot of food every day as well. They typically eat about 20% of their body weight every single day. For an otter of their size, they're each around 45 to 50 pounds. That comes out to about 10 pounds of food every day. But for us, as average humans, it would come out to about 25 large pizzas every day, all by ourselves. It's a lot of food that they need to have every day. And so to make sure they're getting all of that food, we're not only giving it to them in these training sessions here, but we are also giving it to them in different types of enrichments. You'll notice on that back deck, we've got many different pieces of what we would call car wash kelp, or this fake kelp substance that we can actually wrap food in, or we can use just as an enrichment type of item on the exhibit. This helps to make sure every day is a little bit different in there and helps to make sure that every time these otters are in there, they'll associate different things with their food items. You'll see that on that left-hand side right now, Selka is kind of hanging out inside of that spa, just getting some nice, delicious treats of food there. And each one of our otters, as we ask them to do different behaviors, we use positive reinforcement. So if one of our otters is asked to move on to that back deck and does, we reinforce that behavior with their favorite foods here. Now, these are 3 of our 5 Southern Sea Otters that we have here at the Monterey Bay Aquarium, and these are all non-releasable otters. You'll notice we're working with them and using targets as well. Far left-hand side, you'll see the white and red ball. That target is going to move our otter up out of the water and onto that rock work. That target can be used not only during feeding sessions like this to ask the otter to go to different places, but can also be used when moving them on and off exhibit. Again, I mentioned we have 5 otters here. Our other 2 are behind the scenes right now, just getting some rest time off exhibit. But these otters are here for a bigger purpose as well. They're here as part of a sea otter surrogacy program that we have here at the aquarium. Essentially what that means is if there are any wild sea otter pups that are found without mom out in the wild, and we're able to bring them in here, we then can use one of our exhibit otters to help raise that pup as if it were their own, helping to teach them what it's like to be a sea otter, and then tagging and releasing that pup back out into the wild. It's like our own foster program for these otters. Now on the back deck right now, we are seeing Ruby, and Ruby is our only otter out of our 5 otters that has not yet raised a surrogate. She's our newest otter here at the aquarium, has only been with us here for a little over a half a year. And so she's starting to learn the ropes of what it would be like to be a surrogate mom, learning how to be able to take care of pups that are not her own. And by doing that, she's also establishing this relationship with our trainers as well. So we've been moving our otters on and off exhibit to make sure that each one of them has that time to go behind the scenes and kind of solidify all of those different behaviors. Oh, we just got to see Ruby stick her nose right up to that target. That targeting behavior is very, very important there. And you'll notice our trainer rewarded her with lots of delicious pieces of food afterwards. Now, once you start by training an otter with a target like that, you can ask them to do many things, like standing up on her back legs there. By doing that, our trainer can then look at her stomach, look at her fur to make sure everything looks nice and healthy. These sea otters actually have the thickest fur of any marine mammal in the entire animal kingdom, and that is roughly 600,000 to 1,000,000 hairs per square inch. It is a lot of hair that they have to keep themselves nice and warm. This is actually why they have to go in the water quite a bit. If they were to haul out on land for too long, they could overheat. And this is important because these otters don't actually have a thick layer of fat or blubber to keep them warm. They instead rely on that thick fur coat that they have, and they use that fur coat to keep themselves nice and warm while in these very chilly Monterey waters. Now, these otters are very important to our environment here, very important to the kelp forest as a whole. They're actually considered to be what we would call a keystone species in the kelp forest, or one that keeps everything in balance. By keeping a keystone species nice and healthy, we are making sure that the kelp forest remains healthy and that all of the animals and the habitat around there stay nice and beautiful. Now, this was threatened a little while ago because back in the early 1900s, sea otters were actually hunted for that thick fur that they have. They were hunted down to about 50 individuals, 50. Those 50 individuals were found over near Bixby Bridge, and they were starting to be protected by some of the locals there. Those 50 actually turned into our population today of about 3,000. And although that's still been an improvement, it's still a very fragile population that we have here. So very important that we're able to have this surrogacy program here at the aquarium and that we are able to take care of these otters and allow you all to see them as ambassadors for their species. Now our trainers just handed out the last little bits of food there. So now comes the really fun part. We'll get to watch these otters groom themselves because they want to make sure that their fur stays nice and clean and healthy to be sure that they are staying nice and fit in the water there as well. So we'll get to see them groom themselves for a little bit here. And of course, with this just about wraps up the feeding here. So I'm going to go ahead and step off microphone. But I will encourage you, if you do have any questions, again, my name's Micalah. I'm hanging out up here on this mezzanine level behind you all, and I'd be happy to chat. But if you're moving on, thank you so much for joining me here. Have a great rest of your day today here at the Monterey Bay Aquarium.